Welcome to the Animus podcast. This is episode 37. I am Aftermath. I'm joined by Aries.
Hello.
And Connor.
Hello.
AKA McCrackenway. We have a pretty great episode lined up for you here today. We will be talking a bit about some of the recent news, talking about the PC launch of Syndicate, and we'll also be talking about Syndicate's Rift mission. If you haven't played that, I definitely recommend you do before listening to that section of the episode, but we will give you fair warning before we get to that section. Do you guys want to talk about anything before we get into the meat of the episode?
Not really.
I've been playing like a ton of Fallout 4 this week. Like all of my spare time when I'm at home has just been so much Fallout 4. I'm really enjoying that game. Oh man!
And I was working on an essay.
Yeah! Woo!
Yeah, you started that early.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to be doing this weekend and over a lot of Thanksgiving. But I don't know, taking a little bit of time.
It is a tragedy. I haven't even played Syndicate since, what was it, like 2, maybe even 3 weeks ago now that we did the spoiler cast. Mm-hmm. It's pretty bad. So I'm having a little bit of withdrawal. Usually I'll take a nice long month to play through the game, and then I'll start the second playthrough immediately. But this year it was 2 weeks, boom, and then wait a month until you get to play it again. No. I'm very sad because Syndicate's really good and I just want to play it.
Yeah. And other things released this week, the Victorian Legends pack was released, and before we get to that, I just want to say that I'm really loving how they're handling the DLC with this game, with these smaller costume packs, but also like a free costume released alongside it that is involved with the theme of that pack.
Yeah.
Like this DLC, we got Evie's Dracula-looking outfit, which looks so cool. It's such a great addition. I think I actually like it better than Jacob's Frankenstein outfit, personally. But I'm really loving how they're handling it so far. Basically, all this pack it's just like this gear set, full gear set that's just inspired completely by Victorian literature. Like
especially Gothic horror, I think.
Yeah. But the cookery is based on the Jabberwocky, and the cane sword is based on Dracula, and Evie's outfit is Dracula, and the assassin gauntlet is what is it? Is it 1,000 Leagues Under the Sea or 20,000?
It might be. I'm not looking at it right now. I couldn't tell you, but
I can check.
Is it the Nautilus one? Because then yes.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. That's it. Yeah, it's which is epic, and then yeah, Jacob's outfit is based on Frankenstein, which I just love.
Yeah, it looks really good. A lot of times we'll have DLC outfits that look kind of like, cool, but whatever. These ones, I mean, the steampunk one a couple weeks ago, and this, and the Sherlock one, and just all over the place. It's been really great, and I love all the different directions they're taking it. I think they're doing a great job of going through all of the extremes of getting this world that they have the kind of steampunky aspect of Victorian London, the Gothic aspect of Victorian London, and the literature Sherlock aspect of Victorian London. I'm curious to see where they go next. But I think they do a really good job of, they have the base game, which is all grounded stuff, and then it's like, screw it, let's just be fun and do whatever. So I like the approach they're taking with this a lot. Yeah,
definitely, and all of the gears and all the pieces of gear in this one have like quotes from the literary work that they're inspired from, which I think is a nice touch. I really like this pack, especially. I really like how they're handling the DLC of this game overall, and I hope we get more of this, because they haven't actually announced any more of these small DLC packs. They've announced like costume packs, they've announced like things like the Last Maharaja missions and things like that, but they haven't announced any other DLC packs.
Haven't they said like there are some unannounced outfit packs?
Oh,
I mean, like
possibly.
I
recall, I think in terms of gear sets, this is the last one we'll get, because they said, Season Pass comes with 2 free top-tier gear sets. One was the level 9 or 10 Steampunk set. This is the level 7 Victorian Legends set. And again, brilliant that the outfits and gear are level locked, so that it's not super overpowered at a low level, or good for low level and then useless when you get higher. So it's again, well done there. But I think this is the last proper gear pack we get. But outfits, I'm not sure about.
Maybe we'll get more with Jack the Ripper,
Hopefully.
who we all know.
I would
as
expect we'll
Jacob.
definitely get more with Jack the Ripper. Maybe with the last Maharaja as well.
Yeah,
'cause
like Indian
India
themed ones.
stuff. Yeah, you get like, I don't know, maybe you get to wear Henry's outfit as Jacob, or
That'd be cool.
just
Wait,
or they get their
Aftermath,
own
you
styled.
said that we now know that Jack is Jacob. Has that really been confirmed?
No, it hasn't.
Okay.
We-
I'm
we-
still holding out. I really don't want it to happen.
Yeah, we just know that we're playing as Evie in the Jack the Ripper DLC.
Yeah.
But I still think
Yeah,
that we will.
I mean, there was a
Yeah.
German thing that translated it.
Yeah.
Weird, but
The thing
don't
is,
know
if Jack is Jacob, that kind of kills all the whole sequel stuff we've been talking about with the Fry twins, which I really don't want to happen.
yeah, and I also think it makes I don't know, because the whole point of the game was like the twins reconciling with each other, like learning to work together, and then it's like, well, what
And Jacob goes
what
mad.
happened in between? Then
Yeah.
I don't know, I just don't think it
Yeah.
would make as much sense, especially since the game was like super lighthearted in tone. So I like
By the way, the German thing was actually like a bit of miscommunication, because there are actually versions of that in English that came with some copies of the game too.
Yeah, that's what-
It's just that like when the person who was German translated it, he said Jacob, but it can also be translated as Jack. So and in the English version, it actually just says Jack. So we know we're playing as Evie, although we don't know who Jack is. Although I still think it is
Gotcha.
Jacob. Anything else before we get started? I think that we should get
That's about it.
started now.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. This week, Syndicate released for the PC, and news has been actually pretty good. Nothing wondrous, nothing like Rogue's PC port, which I think was praised as being brilliant, but, well, brilliant for Ubisoft Kiev. But Syndicate has done very well. It's not broken, really. It's not all that buggy. It's mostly working, which is mostly all the PC players were hoping for with that. Have you guys heard a lot about the PC launch?
I've seen mixed things. I don't know. I feel like they have I think the main thing I'm seeing right now is people are upset that apparently cloth physics are remaining at 30 frames per second while they're running the rest of the game at 60 frames per second. Which I mean, I don't know. For me, that as a console player, I'm like, oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay. But
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's just like more like it's a problem I don't understand. I'm sure like if I was playing it, it would be different. But I don't know.
Yeah, I've pretty much seen the same thing. I saw some stuff about the cloth physics. Nice low 30 frames per second, make it cinematic. No, but it's basically like, yeah, it's a PC port. It works. Go play it. Whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
not
not.
a-
Again, yeah, I'm not seeing any outstanding praise of like, oh my god, you can change every single setting imaginable. No, but it's not broken. It's not glitchy. No one's falling through the world yet. It's a game you can play, so that's pretty much all
Yeah.
that really matters. And especially, not to shit on the hard work of a lot of people, but good job Ubisoft Kiev on putting out a PC port that is running smoothly. So yeah,
Yeah, definitely. Nice
Yeah.
work. I think that like that little delay, that month delay, was a big deal and helped a
Yeah.
little bit.
yeah.
Right.
But yeah, since I'm not playing it, those are my entire thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. None of us, we're all PC, we're all console players, so sorry PC players if we just completely got the entire situation wrong, but we,
Panic in the streets, and we've missed all of it.
we're speaking
Well, actually-
secondhand.
McCracken and I were talking about this at lunch yesterday, and I used to be a PC player
Oh, yeah.
a long time ago, and I was in middle school or whatever. I finally got a PS2 to play that Star Wars Episode 3 game, but until then I was all on PC. So I was probably playing during whatever the opposite of the golden age of PC gaming was, when installs took forever and Steam didn't exist yet, so it was an absolute mess. Then we kind of realized this is also not really the golden age of PC gaming either, because as great as your 60 frames per second is, if all the PC ports kind of suck, I mean, what are you gonna do? So I mean, obviously, objectively, PCs can do a lot more when it works, but it doesn't work all that much compared to console games where it's kind of like plug the disc in, it will run. I mean, am I the only one on that? Does anyone else agree with my opinion that everyone else obviously agrees with?
You wouldn't believe the amount of crap I've had to deal with on this subreddit this week, because people have been joking about PC Master Race, people have been serious about PC Master Race. Every single time anyone mentions that, including probably this episode, just this shitstorm in the comments just erupts, and it's incredibly brutal. Like, oh man, like, some people were arguing that Unity wasn't actually that broken on PC, and oh god, it was, it's bad. And usually I have to deal with that pretty quick, otherwise it explodes further and becomes much worse.
Yeah, I think right now it's mostly that it's like people are still, developers are developing for consoles because that's where there's really a lot of activity right now. I mean, consoles have grown in a big way, even just in terms of like amount of games. Like, indies have started showing up a lot more on consoles when they used to be more exclusive to the PC. So consoles are where the market is, and so developers develop for consoles, but they develop on the same schedule that they would normally without thinking about ports, I guess. So, I don't know, and ports were never even very reliable, like, an N64 game ported to it. I don't even know what else is in the same generation game. I don't know, just ports are not optimal anyway, and that there's an entire massive group of people playing almost like exclusively ports of console games. It's not the most optimal situation, I guess.
Yeah, I think that became a bit better with the release of the PS4 and Xbox One, because they're similar in architecture, especially the PS4 over the PS3
yeah, but
to
I've also,
PC.
like, this has been the year where I've heard the worst stuff about PC ports. Especially, like, I mean, you remember Arkham Knight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, about Arkham Knight, McCracken and I once, when waiting in line for sandwiches at lunch, we're talking about Game Informer's Game of the Year nominees list. And first of all, Assassin's Creed Syndicate was not nominated for Soundtrack of the Year, which is some bullshit. But secondly, Arkham Knight wasn't even on the Game of the Year list, even though it got tens from most major outlets, including, as I recall, a 9.5 from Game Informer, which seems obscene. So one of the things that McCracken very astutely pointed out was that it's because a lot of the Game Informer people mostly play on PC, and Arkham Knight was borked on PC, or at least a non-negligible portion of Game Informer's senior editors play on PC. So for a borked game to be nominated for Game of the Year doesn't really work if half the editors can't even play it to judge it. So it seems so odd that just because a game was bad on one console, even though it was objectively brilliant on the other ones, it gets knocked out of Game of the Year contention.
Yeah, Arkham Knight's an interesting point because of the whole mess that was there, and that came off Steam for how long was it? Was it off Steam? It was off Steam for like a month, wasn't it?
Couple months.
No,
it was from release until like a month ago.
Yeah.
And then it was still pretty broken, although not unplayable anymore, which is brutal. Speaking of gaming journalism and Game Informer, we have another thing that we're going to talk about real quick. This
Here we go,
week,
Kotaku
released not one, but two articles about being blacklisted by Ubisoft and Bethesda. And, well, I think that we here in the Skype call are pretty in agreement on what we think about this. So don't expect any kind of spirited debate. We're still going to talk a little bit about it because it's a very interesting topic. I've heard some interesting people saying some interesting things around the place. So, everyone here has read both of them. Connor, could you explain to us what exactly that first article was about for anyone who hadn't heard it?
I mean, at the most basic level, what it seems like is just Kotaku being annoyed that it's been blacklisted by both Bethesda and Ubisoft. Yeah, that's the main thrust of it.
And they were talking a bit about why that happened and why they're only reporting on it now, even though both of them happened. Well, Bethesda happened about 2 years ago, over 2 years ago.
Bethesda, at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, and Ubisoft was just
A year.
under a year ago. So they're now talking about it because this seems like it's going to be a little bit more permanent, and normally when a publisher blacklists you, they usually get over it pretty quick. So basically, Kotaku was talking about how after they leaked Victory, after they leaked Unity and Rogue, they were blacklisted for a few months, but then Ubisoft got over it and were in contact with them again. But after they leaked Victory, then Ubisoft just basically, okay, screw those guys. Let's not talk to them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so they stopped getting it. But the interesting thing about these articles, and the second article, which is by Kotaku UK, which includes an interview with an anonymous source who has experience in games media, is that
An elusive Mr. Z, which is just profoundly dumb.
And it's interesting how they kind of seem to think that they're right. Like, the title of the article is A Price of Games Journalism, and, like, is leaking things games
we're
journalism?
making such a sacrifice. Ugh.
Yeah.
We've been blacklisted by companies because we leaked stuff that they didn't want out there yet.
The first one was The Price of Games Journalism, and the second one was called What Happens When a Video Game Publisher Doesn't Like What the Press is Saying. So I think the difference between the two articles is the first one is like, oh, look at us, we were trying to, give you the truth, and they said no. The second one kind of has more of like a we're fighting for freedom, and they're trying to, crush our voices. It sounds really weird. So it's really weird. They're talking a lot about review scores, even though they say like we don't give review scores, and they have this elusive Mr. Z who shows up, and they
keep saying like these companies get mad because games are reviewed badly, and then it's like, but you just said you didn't give review scores, so that's not why they're mad at you, obviously.
Yeah. So Kotaku's doing a lot of whining, it sounds like to me, because the thing is that they leaked Unity and Rogue, fine. And then they went and did it again after Ubisoft presumably told them, hey, please stop. This really hurts us. We want to reveal the game the way we want to reveal it. So could you please, get off our asses about this and let us do our job? Thanks. And then, of course, they didn't, and they released it in, December?
Yeah, crazy.
Before anyone actually cared to think about what the next AC game was going to be when we were all worrying about Unity. And then Ubisoft said, hey, this is true, but, you guys are kind of being dicks here because we wanted to do this our way. So I personally do not feel bad at all for Kotaku because I have had lots of problems with the way they do journalism for a long time. Namely, the check out how much Edward Kenway looks like this porn actor article from a couple years back, which really was just like, no, because they leaked AC4. They had all that stuff about like, hey, take a look at the map. And I was like, oh, look, Kotaku, cool, I'll follow these guys. And then, almost a month or two later, I was like, nope, this is shit, never mind. Kotaku, I just don't like them.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because, I don't see that there's any point where you can, leaking games is, like, it's not like the official Secrets Act or WikiLeaks or anything. You can't defend yourself on that because there's no point where it's super important that that a game that you didn't know was in development is now in development.
Yeah.
Yeah, they think they're being really noble by doing this, and it's not noble at all.
Yeah. This is actually one of the defenses that I've seen where this man, he's a game journalist, Colin Moriarty. I think you guys may have heard of him. He worked for IGN, and now he works for Kind of Funny. I have massive respect for the dude. He's really intelligent. I agree with a lot of things he says, but he was defending Kotaku on this, and people were like, wait, so when is leaking things ever good? And he referred to the Pentagon Papers and Edward Snowden and Deep Throat. And I was like, that's not the same thing. One of those is the government doing illegal things when the public should know about it and would never know about it. And this is Kotaku leaking games, which we'll find about anyway in 6 months' time. It's, they're kind of different things. And Kotaku also says that they, want to get things out there that the public won't learn about any other way. And that's not the same with Fallout 4 and AC Syndicate because we were going to find out about it either way. They referred to gaming layoffs at gaming companies, bad work conditions at gaming companies. Things like that are actual games journalism because, we're not going to hear about it, but it's something that people should know about. But just like leaking the script for Fallout 4 2 years before it's going to be released is kind of not the same thing.
Yeah, I think one example of a leak that did something right was the Deadpool target footage leak. Because the movie was canned, and then when the footage got out there, everyone saw this and thought, oh my god, it's so cool. And the fan response is what actually prompted them to make the movie in the first place. Or in the second place, I guess. But this is not anywhere near the same thing because the video game is going to be made. It's going to happen anyway. We're going to hear about it. We're going to play it. And it's not like they're doing us some great service by telling us about something in a way that's worse than how the Ubisofts or the Activisions or the whoever would have told us about it, their way. Again, the same point is they're really not doing us any favors by leaking a game because we see a worse version of it in a way that is not meant for us to be, seeing it.
And, it actually hurts the game in two ways in the end. It doesn't really help it. It hurts the game, one, by mixing up the marketing cycle. Of course, that's probably the most evident one, just screwing up the marketing department. And two is do you not think that by leaking someone's content that they've been working hard on for the last 3 years, they're not going to be demoralized by that, or they're not going to be hurt by that, Yeah. I've been working on this project for 3 years. I can't wait till they get to see it at E3. Oh, look, these dickheads just showed everyone it in the worst way possible. They don't actually see what the game actually looks like. They just see this target footage, which was never meant to be public. I think that actually, that would hurt the game probably more than anything else, and yet Kotaku didn't even, think about that at all.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that really actually fucked up Syndicate's marketing was that because Victory, as it was leaked so early in the cycle compared to, everything else, it was associated deeply with Unity because we were all playing Unity when we were hearing about Syndicate, and this is when we were all realizing, actually, maybe Unity is not the great game we thought it was for the first, 2 weeks or however long it was. So we have this new game, Syndicate, which is immediately associated with the bad game, Unity. So part of the reason I think that, now looking back, it was so hard to shake the feeling that this is going to be bad is because we were hearing about this new game, right on the heels of this other one and thinking, they've made Syndicate already. We've seen footage of it. And Unity just came out and it was so bad. How can Syndicate be any better? So that temporal association of the two, which was not meant to exist, I think really caused Ubisoft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think the timing is suspicious. Because, they talk about loyalty to their readers, but they really just seem to be more fishing for clicks and likes and stuff.
Yep.
Because if you think about it, they leaked Victory at the time when probably disappointment in Unity was at its greatest. And these two articles now are coming up when both Syndicate and Fallout 4 have just released. And, both, although, Syndicate's got mixed reviews because it's obviously living in the shadow of Unity and every other game that came before it. And then Fallout 4 has had some bad user reviews. People comparing it to Fallout 3. And it really just feels like with these articles, they're those games that you're frustrated with? Here's us being mad about their publishers. And it seems shady, just their timing with that.
We've talked a bit about the act of leaking itself, and we've talked about that before on the subreddit and places because that's always been a point of contention among many people. And I don't really like leaks at all. I think that the way that Ubisoft could announce something is way better than the way that any leaker could, and could get everyone excited way more and have way more fun in the community. But that's beside the point. The main thing about the article is that these two companies have blacklisted them. And, it almost sounds like they're acting as if... Now, I should clarify, I'm not a journalist, so I'm speaking as a consumer, as a reader. I'm not speaking as someone who has an experience in journalism as a medium. It sounds like Kotaku's speaking like getting review copies and things like that is a right. And
it is so not, yeah, exactly.
And as if, by default, these games companies should be sending them it, and if they get pissed off, then they should just get over it and continue sending them stuff. And it's like, I think the game company can do whatever the hell it wants, you know?
Yeah, they don't owe you anything, Kotaku, especially not if you're fucking over their marketing.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, there's actually Jim Sterling, who runs this great YouTube channel. He's actually making a video based on this, so maybe my opinions will change in the next week, and we'll touch on that in the intro next week if that does, with a bit of follow-up. But he mentioned that, like, if, you know, the important part for your readers is you having the exclusive content, then maybe you're not actually just writing well enough. If the reason that everyone's coming to you is for early stuff, then maybe you aren't doing too great a job at actually writing and covering the stuff itself.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, I actually want to, like, mention, by the way, before we move on, Steven Totillo has been in the AC subreddit thread where I posted this link, and he's been defending it. I definitely recommend you go check that out, because I really like Steven as a person. He's a really cool guy, and he's on the subreddit quite a bit. So you should go read his defense, although I still don't quite agree with him. I just wanted to highlight this real quick comment. I'm trying to find it right now, that someone mentioned. Okay, so this person said, I won't mention your username, I just think it's hilarious that AC Games trumpet freedom of information so much, while Ubisoft wants to control information flow on their games in totality. The hypocrisy is strong. This is brilliant, okay? Now, I responded with, Ubisoft is not a single person. The writers and game designers champion freedom of speech in a video game, while Ubisoft PR blacklisted Kotaku. Any further thoughts before we move on? I definitely think that everyone should go read both of these articles. They're very interesting, especially the Kotaku UK one, titled What Happens When a Video Game Publisher Doesn't Like What the Press is Saying. They're very interesting. It was an interesting insight into gaming journalism as a whole for me, as well as how companies interact with gaming journalists and how gaming journalists interact with those companies.
One last thing is that I think with just the idea of what happens when a publisher doesn't like what the press is saying, the premise is entirely faulty, because then Ubisoft would be giving every single review site that gave Unity a bad score blacklistings across the board. But of course they didn't. The one that gave one to was one that gave it a not score. So just the whole premise is it's dumb. Bothers me.
Yeah, I think that Kotaku is entirely in the wrong here.
Yeah, I definitely don't agree with Kotaku on this one at all. But as I said, any exposition, being exposed to new information may change my opinion in the future, and if that does, then we will have a quick follow-up discussion. But now, we're going to talk a little bit about the Rift mission. If you haven't played the Rift mission, you should probably stop listening right about now.
If you don't know what that is, you should have stopped listening before we even mentioned it.
Yeah. Syndicate.
Go to the easternmost part of the Thames, and you'll have fun.
If you pass sequence 5-ish.
Yes.
But yeah.
So if you're on PC and taking your time, then you are shit out of luck.
Yep. Okay. I need to get there in game.
Sorry.
So Connor, while I'm getting there in game. Well, actually no. Connor, you explain the last thing. Aries, while I'm getting there in game, could you explain to us what the Rift mission is for everyone?
Okay.
Because everyone who doesn't know should probably left by now.
Yeah, so if you are a masochist and you're still here, cool, I guess. Or if the pause button's broken, sorry, I'm going around anyway. Trudging on, the rifts were a concept that was introduced in AC Unity, and there were 3 of them. There was one which went to ye olde medieval France around the time of Jacques de Molay, and you were going around and watching a castle get sieged, which was cool. Second one was during La Belle Epoque, when the Statue of Liberty was being built in downtown Paris, which was also neat. And the third one was during World War II, and you climb up the Eiffel Tower and shoot some planes and then jump through a thing. The setup for these was that there were 3 little narrative set-piece kind of running around missions that played sort of like the tombs in AC2, to give a rough comparison. After that, though, there were collection missions that you could do all around the map, which would take you back to these worlds, and it would put you in a little playground area where you'd run around and collect these little clusters of points, and you'd get a certain amount, and then you'd go through a portal and do it again. And you got some assassin intel from doing that, so that was fun, sort of. But most people didn't like them because it was repetitive and not too interesting. This time around, what they did was they took the concepts and made only one instead of three, and made it huge. So while I personally was hoping that we'd get some Battle of Philippi action, as according to Katie the Cliffhanger's theory, I was a very sad person. But what we do is we go to World War I. And when you go to the easternmost edge of the Thames, you see this, kind of white little wall of stuff in the middle of the ocean. Juno's like, yo, come here, I've got candy. And then you walk through and you pop out in World War I era London, and you see Tower Bridge, nicely constructed, and some Zeppelins flying overhead. And I don't remember the specific setup of the missions, but basically it is a full...
Before we get to that, Aris,
yeah.
we actually have a question from Dustman, a.k.a. Dustin on Twitter, and he asked, did you get creeped out the first time you heard Juno's voice at the Rift, or was that just me?
It was freaky as fuck, yo.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it. It took me a second to recognize her voice. Connor, what did you think of that when you first heard Juno calling to you?
Well, at least I sadly had the fact of the Rift's existence and Juno's voice coming out of it I knew about, so I actually wasn't surprised. It was more what was inside the Rift that surprised me.
How'd you get spoiled on that?
Some of those leak videos that came out like just a little bit beforehand, I like dipped a couple seconds in like the middle and saw it, and then I was like, well, shit.
Bad situation.
Yeah. I had the existence of the Rifts spoiled from an article that popped up on maybe Twitter. It was like, Assassin's Creed trophy information, leaked. See, leaks. This is why we can't have nice things, Kotaku. Leaked, and I saw one of the things was complete the World War I rift was like the thumbnail of the thing, and I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. So I knew that. I didn't know Juno's involvement, which was really cool, and we'll get to this later, but the way they tied it in with Juno, giving a little exposition here and there was really cool. But
apparently I'm the only one who didn't actually get leaked like completely on it.
Oh, well, well done. Especially since you're a mod. That's impressive.
Yeah, I know. People were spoiling like the inclusion of Sean and stuff on the modern day, but no one mentioned the rifts really. So that's nice. What were you saying, Aries? You were explaining to us what the rift was.
Oh, so you pop out in World War I, and you are playing as Lydia Fry, who is, I think it's Jacob's granddaughter?
Yep.
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah, Jacob's granddaughter. And she has a dope coat and hair, sort of like Evie's, but not quite. And she's kind of running around, stabbing some dudes, and then some guy kicks down a door, some soldiers rush in, and then boom, Winston Churchill. And he's like, yo, I'm Winston Churchill. And Lydia Fry's like, oh my god, it's Winston Churchill. And then
Lydia Fry's like, I knew that already. I've met you before. You're coming in medias res, guys.
Winston Churchill, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Classic
Women's
Winston.
suffrage.
Yes, that was a brilliant little... I'll get to that in a second. So, so Winston's like, hey, need your help. Help me fix my shit. And I forgot what the exact line was, but he said, like, I'll give you this and this and that. And Lydia says, I'll settle for the right to vote, thank you, and then trudges out and into London, which was nice little touch that was very well established in there. So as opposed to the earlier rifts, which are a small little theme park-like thing, it's just a little playground here, it is an entire district, the size of the rest of the boroughs in London, worth of stuff to see. And the actual story missions are, I think there are maybe 2 or 3, but the meat of the gameplay is in liberating the district from these spies that are out and about around Tower Bridge. And the setup of the world, I guess we can talk about now, is, I think, very well done, that they actually went through and created an entire district's worth of game that you can go into and out of at any time, which is really cool.
As opposed
full
to
of collectibles.
As opposed to like Unity's one where you're just playing as like Arno as an avatar. And these, I love that they like create a full world. We have a new character.
Yep.
We have a new voice actress for it. It's not Victoria Atkin putting on a different voice. It's actually a different person, different design, different like hairstyle, different outfit. It's so cool. And
got her own bio and everything. I mean,
the depth is incredible.
And inclusion of landmarks.
I will say, I think her bio makes me even more skeptical of the Jack equals Jacob theory.
Yes.
Because it specifically references like the elder Fries have been moved to the country, and I'm like that. So why would
They're on
Jacob
a farm
even be here?
upstate.
I love that they explained that she, why she has like all of this. If you go into her skills menu, then she has like every single skill. But that's explained because both Jacob and Evie trained her, so she's like well balanced instead of either of them, which I loved. But I love that they included the two major landmarks, which actually aren't in the main game. They included the Tower of London, which is only in for a single mission in Syndicate, and they also included Tower Bridge, which wasn't built until World War One.
Yeah, not this. I mean, I think there's been like a lot of these things. It's like there was a thing by this name, but it was not the thing that you see today.
Yeah,
I mean, St. Paul's.
Yeah.
In this game, it is St. Paul's as it is now, but there have been many St. Paul's, for example.
Yeah.
and I think that like her bio kind of just it really kind of added this like texture to the history, you know. The people who were the same people who we play as running around fixing Victorian London are still alive in World War One. Like to me, Victorian London and World War One are so far apart in history when I think about it. But then people who were in and fighting for the people in Victorian London are still alive and walking around and training people in World War One. It's crazy. It's crazy. I love that little detail. I think that adds a lot to the history storytelling aspect of the Rift.
Crazy to think that my grandparents and Jacob and Evie would have been alive at the same time.
Yeah, crazy.
Oh yeah, that's one thing as we move forward in history. I don't know how much further. I don't like to speculate how much further we're going to move forward in history because I think we should move back, but I also think we should characters stick with them, please.
Yeah.
Anyway, World War One is very cool.
What did you guys think of? Go ahead.
No, go on. You go on.
I was going to say, what did you guys think of the Tower Bridge hideout at the top of the
oh man,
the East Tower, the North Tower?
Yeah,
I don't know which one it is, but one of them.
Yeah, I think it's north on the game map. I don't know if it's north right now. Granted, right though. Yeah, I like that. I like I don't know. I really like that it's a fully explorable open world. And it has its own viewpoints and its own collectibles. I mean, that could be a plus or minus because especially there's one helix glitch that is a bitch to get. It's possible, but it's a bitch.
Is that the one that's between the two towers?
Yeah, it's like underneath the bridge.
Yeah.
And you think there's like a haystack below it, and you're like, okay, so just leap of faith into haystack. Nope, that totally misses it. I ended up doing it by like hanging from above it and just dropping straight down. And I don't remember if I made it back into the haystack or not. So yeah, but
another. Sorry, go ahead. I've interrupted you twice now.
No, every time like you've interrupted me, I've been like starting to flounder. I'm like, but what else am I going to talk about? So go on.
Okay, then I'll tag in. Another thing is that there are, in addition to the liberation missions that you can do, there are their own little, income activities that you can do as well. So there is shoot down the bomber planes that are flying around, which is a sort of mini callback to the World War II one. I guess they already had the tech, so why not use it in terms of engine rendering stuff, whatever. But the other ones are, what are the other income activities? I remember there were other ones, but I can't remember what specifically they were.
I don't think there are any more.
I don't think there are any more.
They're specifically income. That's just one you can replay because why not? And the others are like your gang liberation stuff. It's just transplanted into World War One and done up in spy clothing.
Yeah.
Which kind of works. I wish that they had. Yeah, I like them. I kind of wish, because that's about the most mission content you have. I wish they were a little more fleshed out, in terms of mission design and story content. I mean, just like, I mean, there's like an overarching kind of villain who gets killed as if it's like no thing. I think can just be pushed into the water as well. He's kind of silly. I mean, it is cool because it's like, I know I'm torn about it because I like that it's like, well, this guy's a sage. He's a bad sage. He sucks, but he was a sage.
Yeah.
I'm torn between like I wish there was like a more impressive ending to that, but I also kind of like this was just an incidental piece of assassin history slightly. And it was more about Juno recollecting herself than you experiencing an assassin's whole story.
Overall, I really liked it. A few other points. I loved Lydia Fry, and when you look at her in the pause menu, she's like, it's more like a painting style instead of like a concept art like we have for Jacob and Evie. Seeing Churchill was great because this is the only time in like World War One where he isn't sending Anzacs to their death. I fucking hate that guy in World War One. He's a son of a bitch. But we also have Katie, aka the Cliffhangers, asks, "Why do you think the World War One mission wasn't part of the main path?" That's actually an interesting point because it's not like the other rifts in Unity were main story missions. In this one, it's a side activity.
Yeah, I don't know. I think partially because it's, I think, a testing ground slightly. And also I think it's cool to have it be like a secret that's off the beaten path, kind of, because the game never really announces to you that it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the most warning that you'll ever have that it exists if you just play through the game naturally is, hey, there's a weird icon over here. I wonder what that is. But you can also just happen upon it naturally without meaning to.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool as like a piece of a discovery. I think that's nice. But I don't know. I think it's also just like they didn't want to put it front and center just in case it didn't go over so well. Because I don't know, if they'd hyped it up like, oh my gosh, World War One simulation, and then, because as I've said, like, the mission design is nothing special in there. If they had hyped it up and then it was like, oh, but it's just whatever missions, then I don't think it would have been as impactful. So I think that's why it's off the beaten track little bit. I think.
I like
don't know.
that in Unity, the rift missions were Bishop sending you to fix the database or whatever it was, some stupid story justification. While in this one, it's like Juno luring into the secret part of Helix, and Bishop doesn't know what's happening, and she's trying to stop you from going near it because it could be dangerous. And I like that kind of like... And then Juno uses that to try and communicate what she's doing because, you know, we're this new character, we've never met Juno before, things like that. And that kind of actually makes it easier for people who have never played the games before. So I'd actually probably, because of this explanation, I might actually consider suggesting to someone to play Syndicate first out of all the Assassin's Creeds because of that kind of explanation it has. And there's also some of that...
Sorry.
Syndicate,
no, go ahead.
Syndicate stands alone pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
I think adding on to your point, Aftermath, two reasons why I think it was off the beaten path. First is just from a gameplay perspective, McCracken, like you said, it's nice to kind of happen onto something and it rewards exploration. I think that's a lot of the theme of Syndicate is like, here's a world, go do whatever you want in it, you know, find whatever you come across and have fun. But Aftermath, to your point, the narrative backing to it is, I think that it feels more natural if you're exploring and you happen upon this and Juno says, here, you know, come into my rift, I have candy. And you go through without the game telling you to go through. It's a choice specifically. So you, the player, feels in touch with, you know, you, the in-game faceless character, because you both share the same motive of, ooh, shiny, let's go see what it is. So if it had just said, you know, go through the rift, it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to go through this anyway. But I guess the illusion of choice, so to speak, and the appeal of like, ooh, cool new thing, let's go explore, really plays to the idea that you're getting kind of drawn in by Juno along the way. And then she kind of spits you back out and you go do whatever you were doing before. Yeah. But narratively and gameplay-wise, I think it does fit really well to be off the main story as opposed to a part of it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I love that Juno used it to try and like give some more exposition. And actually some of that history, you know, we talked a bit about how Darby mentioned that they've written like, what is it, 500 years of first Civ history?
Yeah.
And she starts talking about the Isu era, which we've never heard before in the games.
I think that is just, as far as I can tell, that's just what the first Civ referred to themselves as, was the Isu.
Yeah, I think so.
And the Isu era is, you know, when they were around.
Yeah, so they've stopped referring to it as like 250,000 BC and started calling it like the year 1916 of the Isu era.
Yeah,
which
there's
is cool.
actually, yes, it feels more fleshed out as a world. I mean, you can complain about like, oh, what kind of name is Isu or whatever, but I like that it's actually starting to feel like there is something there, because I mean, there's always been a lot of lore with Assassin's Creed, but I feel like the first Civ, I don't know, it was good at the beginning that it was mysterious, but now that it's been kind of middlingly mysterious for a while. I think it's cool to see it start to be fleshed out. I mean, any series that goes on long enough fleshes everything out, so it's probably the right way to go. One thing I think about the World War One simulation that might not be something a lot of people want to hear is I think it might be replacement for the for a third-person modern-day story. Because it's third person, it's an open world. It's kind of like Darby said he liked Brotherhood's open world the best, where you're a third-person character running around in this area. I don't know, it just seems like an alternative that I would be kind of okay with, honestly. I mean, the modern-day story obviously needs to continue, but I think this is a cool way to touch on other pieces of history that are more modern that the main game, you wouldn't have a main game in because of all the reasons people always bring up. And I don't know, we talked about on a previous one how, on a previous episode, how they can't really, you know, they keep advancing the modern day story a year every time, so that kind of restricts them narratively. I think having just like, if you had, say, you'd flash forward to Lydia Fry, I mean, a lot of people say maybe we should introduce a third faction into the Assassin Templar conflict. I don't know, almost like I think that having an unwritten period in the middle of Assassin's Creed history would kind of be conducive to that. And now I'm starting to ramble and I'm not entirely sure where I'm going, so I should stop.
Yeah, so that's all good. Other thoughts? I really like Lydia as a character. Her inclusion was great. I love Churchill's interaction with her as well, because he knows about the assassins, but he doesn't really have an
Yeah, I like that he
them.
knows. That was cool.
Yeah. So yeah, conquering London was fun, even though it was just kind of pretty simplistic. It wasn't much more than the other ones. What do you guys think?
Although
about
I did like that the actual liberation missions were different and all spy themed. It was cool. It played to the whole, World War One, like spies everywhere. But yeah, continue. Sorry.
No worries. What did you think of the collectibles in the World War One era?
I thought the letters were cool. Hard to I found 9 out of 10 of them.
Same. I hate
I've
that they're not on the
gave up.
map. You can't even buy Helix credits to put them on the map, unlike the other credits.
Yeah,
unlike the other
no,
collectibles.
part of that, I mean, I think it makes sense not to have you be able to purchase a map, because that would be spoilery for the secret of the game again. Like, you go into the eStore, you're like, buy a map for World War One letters. Huh, I wonder what that is.
You could buy it.
I don't know.
in the
I think
World
it
War
would have
One
made
era, though.
a bit more sense to have some more indication as to where they are.
Yeah, just like something that like I don't have to go around. I spent hours and hours looking for number 10, and I still haven't found it. And I don't really want to read all of them until I have number 10. But I love that they are letters from the front, and just reading them, makes me think of like Valiant Hearts, and things like that, and kind of that inclusion of like real life stuff, because like Valiant Hearts had actual letters in it that people sent home. I really like that kind of addition.
They're sad, though, because I think of the 8 out of 9 that I got, 8 of them ended with this person then died at this battle, or died of his wounds after this battle. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but playing through this rift made me realize that, when people say they want a game in World War One, sometimes it doesn't have to be in the trenches, We could be on the home front sometimes. We could be a spy. We could be battling spies. There's a lot more options to history. There was a lot more things going on in the world than just during World War One than just what was happening in Northeast France.
Part of it, I think, is that when people say they want, like, World War One or World War Two, they are thinking of the piece of history that is more at the forefront.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'd be satisfied by a game on the home front.
I definitely think that's what people mean. But now, from now on, when I say World War Two, I'm meaning, or especially like World War One in London, I'm meaning Lydia Fry in London.
But now, I mean, at least like I can say the same thing I said about the Chronicles games, which I think is that this is a good way to explore some time periods that wouldn't work as well for the Assassin's Creed mechanics, because
Exactly.
Although guns are very, they're very advanced by the time of World War One, they're not. I mean, they're illegal. They're illegal in Syndicate, which helps guns not be super prevalent in Syndicate. But they're like especially illegal in World War One, because you've got a fucking war going on. You know, you're anybody carrying weapons at home, especially in Britain where they're relatively, I mean, they're safe from like physically like somebody coming up to them and shooting them. I mean, they're not as safe from, you know, air raids, which again are not super bad in World War One. But you know, I think that there, as you've been saying, like looking at these pieces of history from a different perspective than the popular one makes them work better. And I think that having especially keeping it a smaller contained experience also makes it work better, because it would be hard to explain, like, you know, a game that takes place, you know, over, say, the 40 years of Assassin's Creed 2, a game that takes place for 40 years in the 1900s, it would be hard to explain how you never ran into, like, someone with overwhelming firepower in the line of work of an assassin.
Yeah. So, do you guys want anything else before we sum up what we thought about the World War I Rift?
I really want to see how they handle this in future games, because it opens up so many great doors for, I mean, like we were talking about, like, here is, you know, you're in some setting, London, and this setting has existed for, you know, 1,000 years before, maybe 1,000 years after, depending on what time we're in. But there's all this other stuff that we never really get to see. And I think that having this option of like going to just other places, other times, and seeing, you know, the stuff we didn't get to see in the main game. And when I first saw the trailer for the time anomalies in Unity, I thought, okay, this is going to be huge game changer for the way that Assassin's Creed deals with time periods. Because now, instead of like, here's one time period in one place, it's just think of a place and then you have all of its history to draw from, you know, at once, basically, which is just very liberating, I think, and very interesting. And it gets me excited for other games, like, oh, you know, if we do have, you know, a major restoration game, which I'm still going to hammer on for another year and a half, we could jump back to do one little rift in feudalism so everyone can be happy, and then get back to the rest of the game.
Or if we go to Egypt, if we ever reconnect with Arno in Egypt, like some people want, maybe we have an ancient Egypt setting where we follow a character in ancient Egypt.
Yes, Roman Egypt, Alexandria, that'd be dope.
That would almost make sense, because I bet you could do a kind of an almost Ezio with the memory discs thing, where it's like Arno hunts for things in, you know, first civilization stuff under pyramids and does his tomb raiding stuff from dead kings, and then you get this ancient Egyptian assassin actually like existing closer to the time period.
Now you got me thinking about the memory discs and how you could connect. Maybe Lydia is set up as a protagonist, or oh man, there are so many options racing through my head right now. You could do memory discs that connects to Arno, that connects to someone before. Oh man,
and that's partially why I think that this wouldn't be bad as a replacement for the modern day story if they shifted it a bit more to the forefront, because you could do that. You could be like, okay, you have this World War I open world, which, you know, keeps the gameplay of Assassin's Creed. It's not like a hard reset, and then the only times you have to be in it are, say, like to go get another memory disk from. You do like a modern mission, you go get another memory disk. And I just don't think you have to have, I don't know, I think you can still do the grand conspiracy narrative. I just don't think you have to have necessarily tropes that we associate, like in the storytelling we want from modern day, take place in the actual modern day. I mean, I know people like that for the, like, it could be really happening thing, but I don't know, I'm feeling less of that as we get less modern day. Because they're moving forward every year. It's like, well, we don't actually know what big things are going to happen when this game launches, so we can't do anything gigantic. I don't know. I think it would be more interesting to have a bit of a different skew on it, or at least workable. And I think they would be more amenable to it than going back to a playable modern day when the fans are so divided on that. Because you'd still, I mean, if you did the other thing, you'd still be keeping a historical narrative running, which would be... And that you just base your conspiracy stuff off of that and your first Civ stuff off of that instead.
And if we have the modern day continue the way it has been with the overarching 4 or 5 cutscenes through the game, which I was perfectly happy with, I think exactly McCracken way, it would be, I think, for at least for me, an ideal way to explore the modern day, because you get cool settings, different time periods, new characters, Juno talking in your ear, and you keep an overarching modern day narrative that you check in on throughout the course of the game. That'd make me a very happy Aries.
Yeah, and I will say, like, before people get mad, like, I just came up with these ideas on the spot. I mean, they may be blasphemous, but it's mostly just wild, like, I wonder if this could work kind of speculation. I mean, you'll get mad anyway, but that's my defense.
Don't blacklist McCracken way.
And other stuff.
That's Ubisoft's new attack for the modern day. Sorry, guys.
Another stuff that's slightly unrelated, but you mentioned the Ares, the Meiji Restoration. I actually learned about the Meiji Restoration in class this week because we, in my World War II history class, we were taking a look at Japan, and so we had to look at what Japan was doing in the lead up to World War II, and so that included looking at like the feudal Japan, the samurai, and their code of honor and Meiji Restoration. And after learning a bit more about the Meiji Restoration, I would definitely love to see that as a time period.
Right.
I think that we should probably explain it to everyone because I doubt that many people will actually look up what it is. Do you want to explain that now, or should we? Maybe that could be a dedicated feature.
That would be best as a dedicated feature because I do not know enough right now off the top of my head to talk about it.
All right. Do you guys want anything else about the riffs, about the modern day, about follow-up from last episode? Last episode was a ton of fun talking about the soundtrack, wasn't it?
That's 2 episodes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I thought you were going to talk about the spoiler cast, but yeah, you were not. What are you talking about having fun discussing the soundtrack? You said 2 things the entire time.
I was just enjoying listening to everyone talk about it. It was great fun.
I thought it was hilarious when you called me out for being able to read.
If any of you listeners haven't heard the soundtrack episode yet, it was a ton of fun. Connor did brilliant work editing in all the songs there, so you should definitely go check that out. It was up a little late this week because I was super busy this week, but Connor came in and he managed to edit it all up and did a great job with it.
Yeah, I really hope to... I mean, every time I do a soundtrack episode, I'm like, I want to do more because, you know, we didn't get to talk about X or whatever. And I mean, especially with this episode, because we're still in the weird time after Syndicate where it's like, I've finished the game, I want to talk full spoilers, but I know everybody hasn't. You know, we have to go with the audience as much as Kotaku thinks it does. I mean, so that's a relatively spoiler-free episode. You will have spoilers up to sequence 4, but not past that. But again, I want to do another one where we do full spoilers just in relation to the songs, though, because there are some murder ballads and songs that take place at certain points of the game where it's like, it's hard to talk about them without also talking about what's going on in the game at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we could definitely do that. Has everyone found like where all the murder ballads are triggered yet? Because I don't. I've only heard 2 in game.
As far as I can tell,
they all show research.
They all show up in bars.
Maybe? I don't know.
Oh, okay. I need to go to more bars then. I don't spend much time in bars.
I don't know. It's weird because, like, I think that's one reason why the beer bottles exist is to get you into the bars and hearing those things. But there are also there's a bunch of other diegetic music that you'll probably hear before then because the murder ballads only play after you've murdered the person they're about. So if you collect all the beer bottles like pretty early on in the game, you're not going to naturally have a reason to go into the bars and hear the murder ballads. And even then, I don't think they trigger automatically. Like the first time you go into a bar after murdering Dr. Elliotson, you're not going to hear his murder ballad probably. I still haven't heard his murder ballad in game. But yeah, I don't know. I've been doing a lot of that. I did notice having restarted Syndicate, I misplaced the song. I think it's called like Welcome to London or London is Waiting. That song, I said, like, probably starts during the cutscene where Jacob and Evie arrive in London, and then the fast part kicks in when Jacob has his money stolen. And I don't think that's true. I don't think Jacob has his money stolen. I mean, it's not that song that plays when Jacob has his money stolen. It plays in the same memory, but it plays when the fast part plays when Evie and Jacob are racing to the viewpoint. And I don't know where the beginning slower soft part comes in. As I replay all the games and listen to the soundtrack a bunch, I mean, this happened with Assassin's Creed 2, Revelations, Brotherhood. I'm always like, what song is that? Where am I hearing that?
Yeah, we'll definitely have to have like an episode where we touch back on some of the subjects we've talked about before, because there are a few things that we've talked about and other times that we could probably like update and amend and things like that. But I think that will be this episode done. Do you guys want to mention anything before we get into the outro?
I think we're good.
All right. This has been episode 37 of the Untitled Podcast. If you would like to be on or would like to be a guest or would like to ask us a question, as several people did this episode, then you can contact any of us on Twitter, on Reddit, or through our email. animusislandpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I messed it up a
As
lot.
many as 4 people have contacted us through that email.
Yes, you could
Maybe
be
you can
number
be the
5. But yeah, if you'd like to be any of that dealio, then throw that way. Most people really enjoy contacting me on Twitter, because that's probably easiest for like a back and forth discussion. So I'd probably recommend that over the email if you wanted to contact me in particular, or if you're scared of me, then maybe the email will probably be better. If you want us to talk about anything, then you can also do that. If you want to make any discussion, any changes to the podcast, you can leave it in the comments. And that's it. Thank you for listening. I'm Aftermath. That's Aries. Say goodbye, Aries.
Bye.
That's Connor. Say goodbye, Connor.
Bye-bye.
Connor is also McCracklemeye on Reddit and Twitter and that stuff. We will see you all next week.
Take a look around lively old London. Buzzing crowds, we sweat and we revel. Red-cheeked shouts and songs in the flicker of the gaslight. Eager blighty bursts from the cobblestones, racing, climbing, blooming fertility, born from secret seeds that are scattered in the night time. London is fed upon the meat of the dead. They're one shallow inch below the town. Underground, underground, leave them underground. Them that whispered dreams that only poisoned us, them that told us lies of their bravery, them that preached of progress and put us in the poorhouse, them done horrid murder on bloody stages, them that loudly crowed their humility, lords and dames that sung in the chapels on a Sunday. All quiet now, their mouths are stopped up by mud. They lie flung in rags and make no sound. Underground, underground, leave them underground. Those who fought for something better, those who taught by how they lived, loved ones taken long before their work was done. Underground, underground, leave them underground. Underground, underground, leave them